Want to know the 10 questions you must ask when viewing a property? Well, make sure to check out this video because I'm going to be covering everything that you need to know. Hey everyone, thanks so much for coming back to my YouTube channel. If you are new to this channel, I hope you enjoy the content, and if you do, I'd love it if you would subscribe and hit that notification bell. I put out weekly content about the London property market. My name is Ugo Arinze with Onyx Property Consultants in Keller Williams. I'm a London-based property agent, and I absolutely love living in this incredible city. So this channel is really dedicated to sharing content that hopefully you find informative about the London property market and also about living in this incredible city. So in this video, we're going to be talking from the perspective of a buyer, and I'm going to be sharing with you my top questions that I think every buyer should be asking when they attend their first viewing. I've got another video on the things you really need to be doing when you're at your second viewing, which is saying you're actually getting pretty serious about this property. But that's going to be on another video that you want to check out. But in this video, we're talking about the first viewing and those questions that you really want to start asking to make sure you have a good sense of the property. As a real estate agent, I work with both buyers and sellers. That means I have listings, and when I do, I'm representing the seller, but that means I get to engage with buyers who are coming in and seeing the property. And so with that, I definitely have kind of gotten a sense of those key questions that buyers typically are asking, but I'm throwing in a few more that I think some buyers often miss. So let's dive right in. So the first question that buyers often ask is, how long has the property been on the market? This gives them a sense of whether they think that, for example, there's a lot of key interest in the property. If a property's just come on the market and they're starting to view it, then that might suggest that, you know what, there's going to be some pretty good demand on this property, and there might be a greater sense of urgency. If a property's been on the market for a while, say several months, then it might start to suggest that perhaps that there hasn't been a lot of interest in that property, or perhaps not at the price point that it's been positioned at. And that starts giving buyers a sense of perspective. Oftentimes they'll think, especially if it's been on the market for a while, that they can offer something substantially lower than the current asking price. The next question that some buyers ask, but some often don't, but I do think should be asked, and actually I like to ask this when I'm representing my buyers because it gives me a framework as to what the situation is, and that is, why is the seller actually selling? If you're really kind of attuned to things, it might also give you a sense of time frame. So for example, if somebody is selling because they're having a baby, there might be a greater sense of urgency to complete a transaction sooner versus later. If, say, someone is selling because they're an investor and just really want to offload a property, they might not be as emotionally attached to selling that property and moving on. They might just be looking at it more from a purely financial situation. So that will give you, I think, a sense of framework sometimes as to the timing and urgency that you might be able to use if you like this property enough to make an offer. Because sometimes if you are a property, say you're a buyer who's a cash buyer, you can really use that to your advantage even if you come in and present a lower offer, because it might really match with what that seller needs at that moment, given their reasons for selling. The next question that I think you should be asking is, how long has a seller actually owned the property? This might give you a sense of whether there's a lot of equity in that property, if it might be a fire sale, and also depending on how long they've owned the property, you might then want to ask, well, have they done work to the property since that they've owned it? So if a kitchen's been redone or a bathroom or something else, it might give you a sense of the condition of the property, how it's been looked after. But also when people ask, how long has the seller owned the property, you can then, again, as I said, back into perhaps what they bought it for, and that might help inform what type of offer you might want to make if, say, somebody's owned a property for 20 years. As I mentioned, the fourth question I think buyers should be asking is, have there been any substantial works or improvements done by the owner, or say in a property that's an apartment block, in the apartment block itself? That will give you a sense as a buyer if there's, significant things you might now have to look to correct if, say, a boiler hasn't been replaced in 10 or 15 years, or the roof is 20 or 30 years old, or if there's been major communal works. You'll definitely want to know that, because that'll give you a sense, as I said, if you feel like there's going to be potentially more works that you're going to have to do within the first few months of buying a property. So you don't really want any surprises. Also, for example, I've got a listing where the seller took the time to change out all the windows, put double glazed windows in. You want to get a sense of substantial improvements that have been done to increase the property. And also, depending on how long they've owned that property, right? It'll say, well, if they bought it at this and now they're selling it at this, what justifies that price? But say if they've put a whole new remodeling or extension in, that might give you a sense that actually they've put in quite a bit of extra equity into that home that is now going to be reflected in the current asking price. Next question, especially if you are buying in London, that you want to be asking is a property leasehold or freehold? Now, if it's a detached house, it's going to be a freehold. But if it's not, you definitely want to know if it's a leasehold, freehold, or share freehold. Those are terms that really dictate, is there someone else who owns the underlying land associated with the property? If you want more details on the difference between a leasehold and freehold property, make sure to check out my video. I've got the link above in this video here, where I really break down those key differences. But you definitely want to know if a property is a leasehold, freehold, or share or freehold. Once you know that, the next question begets, are there service charges or ground rent? If you have a leasehold property, there are going to be service charges associated with it. Now that comes into play when the point of a leasehold is that there are going to be other units associated in that building or house. One of the things we say in London, it's a converted terrace property. So it used to be a single family house that has now been converted into multiple flats or units. So in that situation, if it is a leasehold, you're going to want to know, get a sense of what are the service charges associated with that property, which cover the communal costs of maintaining that property. So whether it's roof maintenance, typically it's also going to include building insurance. If there's cleaning or other things, you want to get a sense of what those service charges are. And along with that, there's usually going to be a ground rent, which is considerably less, but that's usually a payment directly to the freeholder. Now, on new build properties, that service charges can often be reflected on a pounds per square footage basis. And so that might be 7 to 9 to 10 or even higher, depending on what that building is and what type of amenities it offers. So say the building's got a 24-hour porter or a gym or a pool or a theater room. Those types of things are going to be reflected in the service charges because they will need to be maintained and looked after. And you as apartment owner or leaseholder will have to pay service charges to cover the cost of looking after those communal areas and services that the building offers. Next up on my list of questions that I think you should be asking as a buyer is, have there been or are there any plans for significant works in the neighborhood or area? Lots of parts of London right now are undergoing significant regeneration plans, and so you do want to know that. I'm selling a house in the Maida Hill area, and there's a substantial regeneration program as part of the council is doing that. So that's 15-year plan, 600 million pounds dedicated and already outlined. So you as a buyer want to know that, and I get excited as a seller because it really suggests that your home will likely improve in value as that area continues to improve substantially. One of the big things that people are asking about is Crossrail, which is a east-west extension or new line that is going to really shorten commutes of a lot of different places throughout London. So you definitely want to know, is Crossrail coming to the area or the station that might support the neighborhood in which you're looking to buy? So those types of plans are really important to know and really might encourage you to get a sense of, actually, I'm not just buying this home for the personal benefits of it, but also because of the potential future appreciation associated with the substantial capital improvements that are coming to the neighborhood or the area. Number 8 on our list of questions that buyers should be asking is, what is the neighborhood actually like? Now, you're going to want to do some due diligence for yourself on this, but definitely ask the estate agent. Get a sense from them what makes this area particularly special. Is it perhaps attractive to certain types of people, whether it's young professionals or families or older residents, and they might talk about certain amenities that might be quite important to you, such as schools. Obviously, transport's going to be important. Are there local parks and different amenities? There might be, different things offered by the council or local area on various nights. So, for example, West Hampstead is a lovely area in northwest London. It's got a great high street, and along there's plenty of shops and things dedicated to families. There's also the Cherie Center, which has got a wonderful play area for children and coffee center that parents can bring their kids, but also hang out and enjoy relaxation time. And so you definitely want to know, what is the neighborhood like, what's around it, and what types of amenities might you benefit from, including restaurants, bars, shops, those types of things. Going along with that, the next question you might specifically want to ask is, what are your actual neighbors like? So beyond just the neighborhood, what are the actual neighbors like? So if it's, say, a terrace house that's got neighbors on either side, perhaps asking who owns those other properties would be very beneficial. Or if you're, say, in an apartment with a flat or things like that, and you might have somebody above you or below you, you might also want to be asking, who are the neighbors? What are they like? As a final question, I think you should be asking as a buyer, just to get a sense as to where things are. And it depends, this estate agent might actually not tell you, is, would the seller consider offers below the asking price? Now, you'd be surprised what kind of response you might actually get from that. As a selling agent myself, I like to reveal very little because I want to make sure that I'm doing the best job for my seller. But when I work as a buying agent, I have actually found that just by asking that simple question, the selling agents sometimes reveal more than you would expect them to. So for example, let's say a property is on the market for £1 million. You think that you're probably going to make an offer, let's say you really liked it, at say $950. Well, you'd be surprised how many estate agents have actually would tell you that, an offer of $925 will get the deal done. Well, goodness, that gives you a perspective that you really hadn't expected to get. There's no harm in ever asking, would the sellers consider an offer below asking price, and kind of trying to get a sense as to what that figure might be that will get the deal done. So I hope these top 10 questions have given you some insight as a buyer if you're going on an initial viewing to get a sense of the property, and questions you really need to be asking to make sure you get a sense of what that property is like, so that if you do like it, you're prepared for your second viewing. And make sure to check out that next video on second viewings. I hope this video has been really helpful for you. If it has been, please do hit the like button. It helps YouTube see I'm putting out great content. I'd love for you to leave me a comment below on the 10 questions I've presented. Which one do you think is most relevant for you? Perhaps you've heard something you might not have thought about in the past. But I hope you like this video, and I'll see you soon. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check out the other videos on my YouTube channel where I feature the London property market and showing off all the fabulous things to do in this city. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. So that's Ugo Arense with Onyx Property Consultants and Keller Williams. Bye for now.